The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Remember that story we did a couple of months ago about Mexican drug cartels legally getting their guns in Arizona, and the confirmation that this was, at the time in the wake of the Gabrielle Giffords shooting in Tucson, of the significant problem that we have not with illegal guns, particularly in Arizona, but in many parts of the country, but with legal guns, Lewis. You remember the story, and we talked about it at length, which is how ironic is it? And ironic is really the term we use to laugh about it instead of cry, which is what we should be doing. But how ironic is it that the same Mexican drug cartels that we are significantly focusing on in the southwestern part of the country are actually arming themselves in great part legally through gun sales in that part of the country? Mm-hmm. Well, the story now is becoming even more complex because the alleged Norway killer, Anders Behring Breivik, it appears has bought ammunition clips also in the United States. And as you know, if you've been following the story, and I actually have my national newspaper column coming out in just a couple of days is on this subject, and it's related to the Norway shooter and incredible media coverage around Muslims and non-Muslims committing terror acts. Well, this is kind of a different story altogether. And the man who confessed to killing the 68 people in Norway last week says he bought the ammunition clips that he used on the shooting spree from the U.S. via mail order. So what are we to expect, Lewis, from the gung-ho, no regulation or almost no regulation gun advocates on this?
Well, he didn't get the guns from the U.S.
That's true. So is that the angle they're going to go with? Listen, the gun he had
I guess
already.
that's the angle I'd go with. I mean, are the clips he bought from the U.S. what allowed him to do this?
Well, this is that same argument that we had with Jared Lee Loughner, right? In other words, he had a 30 bullet clip, and the point at which somebody was able to knock him down and stop him in that horrible day in Tucson, Arizona, was when he had to reload. So it's a logical question to ask, and I'm not saying it's the solution to anything, but we have to be honest with ourselves and say, if that break in shooting had come up after 10 bullets instead of 30, if he didn't have that high-capacity magazine, would he not have been knocked down then? How many fewer people would have been killed? And this is a similar situation. Breivik says in his 1,500-page manifesto that he spent $500 for 10 of these 30-round clips. So again, Lewis, we're talking about 30-round clips again, only months after the Gabrielle Giffords incident. Clips with more than 3 rounds are banned from sale in Norway. So if Breivik can't just order his 30-round clips on the internet from the U.S., is the situation different? I'm not saying does the situation go away. I'm saying is it different?
I don't think so. I think he would have found another country to get them from, or some means of getting them.
But that's a bad argument for not having proper regulation in the U.S.
No, I think we should have better regulation. But I'm in this particular case, I'm saying I think it would have been pretty easy to get them from somewhere else.
Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy, who's a Democrat from New York, she introduced legislation to limit these high-capacity ammunition clips after the Gabrielle Giffords shooting. And she said to Politico straight up, U.S. lawmakers should just be ashamed. We're sending a death warrant to other parts of the world, she said. Unfortunately now, internationally, it's known that you can get here, buy your guns, buy your large magazines, and you're not going to have any problem. So again, Lewis, however easy or not easy it would have been for him to order these clips from other countries, and you know what? I only really know about this within the U.S.
He knew that he could do it here.
He knew he could do it here, and this is where he got it. And now the U.S. is involved in some way. If he gets them from Finland, the tragedy would be just as tragic. But at least we wouldn't be sitting here saying, wait a second, we just had this issue with Jared Lee Loughner and Gabrielle Giffords, and it's the same thing now? I mean, who says the U.S., people complain the U.S. doesn't export anything anymore. Sounds like we're exporting the same types of multiple shootings that we're victim to here in the U.S. Maybe the xenophobes, I'm just trying to find some positive spin on this, Lewis. Maybe the xenophobes will be glad that at least we're not sending the country's best ammunition products over the border to those Mexicans. We're actually saving some of them for blonde white guys. I mean, is that it's something? I don't know. Will that pacify anybody when we think about this story?
Probably a handful of people.
Gun manufacturers are really making a killing, and literally, it's a literal statement, Lewis. So I don't know what has to happen. I know we're going to have the pro-gun rights, and by right, rights is in quotes, or the anti-gun regulation people come out and say, listen, 30-round clips or 3-round clips would not have made a difference in this case. We can't restrict freedoms, the right to bear arms.
Constitution, blah, blah, blah.
The Constitution, maybe they'll throw in 9/11. Maybe they'll throw in, I don't know. What other buzzwords are usually thrown in there?
I think that's the majority of them.
That's for the most part the extent of it.
Yeah.
Listen, we have more and more evidence that the ability to buy these things in the U.S. is leading to real crime. And again, please don't email me and say Anders Behring Breivik would not have done anything if it wasn't for the 30-round clip. That's not what I'm saying. But what is silly, what is short-sighted, what belies logic is to say nothing would have been different about the shooting spree if this guy had 3 bullets at a time instead of 30. That does not make sense to me. What do you think, Lewis?
Yeah, agreed. I think the only reason anyone would need to have multiple clips that hold 30 rounds each is to go on a killing spree.
Well, hold on a second. The argument that sometimes is made is, listen, if you're out in the woods and a bear comes at you, do you think 3 bullets, unless you place them perfectly, 3 bullets won't take down a big bear? You might need the 30-bullet clip to really protect yourself from that bear.
Well, if you want to protect yourself from a bear, you better have a pretty powerful shotgun, because that's what's going to take down a bear.
All right.
Quickly when you need it to.
Lewis standing firm on the bear defense excuse.
Let's face it, most people are shooting at targets with their guns at shooting ranges, right?
Yeah.
And it may be annoying to have to reload constantly and put more bullets in your magazine. So what? I think we can deal with that.
All right. So Lewis very calmly laying out his explanation on this one.